Welcome, everyone. Welcome. I'm Erica Solis, the live stream host of all-creatures.org. All-creatures.org was founded in 1998 and is a leading resource for faith-based animal rights veganism. Led by our executive director, Tams Nicholson, we provide free resources for people seeking to live compassionately towards all creatures. Our extensive library includes vegan sermons and commentaries, animal rights strategies, action alerts, events, and works by various vegan authors. We also sponsor websites for animal rights organizations. Our mission is to unite compassionate individuals worldwide who honor the dignity of all creatures. So today we're very honored to welcome my good friend, Amy Brink-Peterson. Amy is a plant-based health coach who supports changemakers who feel depleted, stretched too thin, or disconnected from their own well-being to rebuild their health, resilience, and vitality so they can sustainably lead and thrive in their advocacy and lives. Rooted in whole food, plant-based living and a transformative, woman-centered coaching approach, Amy's coaching goes beyond surface level habit change to guide clients through deep identity transformation, empowering them to step into their full potential as leaders and visionaries. Drawing from her own experience with burnout and the profound, challenging, and beautiful transformation of becoming a mother, Amy is deeply passionate about helping others care for their health as the foundation for long-term impact. She believes veganism is a practice of loving kindness that extends not only to non-human animals, but also to ourselves. Amy is trained and certified by Food Revolution Network and continues to expand her expertise through advanced training with the Institute for Women-Centered Coaching and collaboration with vegan psychologist Clare Mann. Based in the Netherlands, she offers coaching in both English and Dutch to clients around the world. So I'm excited you're here today, Amy.
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you, Marquita. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm really happy to be here today with you too.
Yeah, so Amy, I got to know Amy through the vegan community, and I was very happily surprised to know that she's studying at the Institute for Women-Centered Coaching, Training, and Leadership, like I did. And so we have a lot of the same beliefs, and they're centered in that interconnection of all life and all of the world, and carrying that into the vegan sphere as well. So it's amazing. And I love that program and the quietness and the grounding of the program to allow discovery and transformation and not forcing, but acceptance. It's so beautiful. And I was looking for something that was more gentle in the coaching realm. And so I really resonated with that. And yeah, and there you were. when I when I read that you were studying that as well, I couldn't believe it. So anyway, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. I'm glad to be here, and I fully agree. I think it's a wonderful program. I'm right in the middle of it, deepening my skills and just getting better at what I'm doing. So I'm really blessed to be able to do that program and to continue learning. So I'm definitely a lifelong learner for sure.
I know, huh? Yeah, there's so many wonderful programs out there. So, well, I want to talk about many things here. So let's get down to it. So tell me, when did you learn about veganism? How did that start, your vegan journey?
Yeah, it's funny because for me, I mean, looking back, there were many moments that I was inching towards it, or moving towards it, but I didn't realize it at the time. So my real kind of what I call my matrix moment, when I kind of woke up, I guess you could say, that pivotal moment, was about 5 years ago, just before Easter, actually, which I find a really beautiful, actually, it's a beautiful moment for such a transformation, because it was like some part of me, an old part of me, was left behind, some old ways of thinking and being, and then a new part of me came forth. And it was really, I listened to a podcast from an anthropologist here in the Netherlands where I live, and she'd written a book about veganism. And I knew before I opened the podcast, I thought, if I open this up, I might be triggering some things. I might not be able to go back, but I listened to it anyway. And it was really one of the most important moments in my life, to be honest. It was really, I needed to hear what she had to say. But leading up to that, there was so much that prepared me for that moment. I think one of the key transformations that really made it possible for me was becoming a mother. That was really, that somehow, entering that phase of motherhood, of matrescence, or the process of becoming a mother, that opened up something in me, a deeper empathy that I was then able to access. And I think without my daughter, I wouldn't be here at this point. So I'm really grateful that she came and helped me to open my eyes. Yeah.
That's beautiful. So when you decided to go vegan, did you have support from your family?
Yeah, I mean, I did. I had support in the sense of, I think people were willing to, prepare dishes for me or things like that. But I was quite lonely in the beginning. I didn't know anybody else who identified as vegan. The only person I knew, I had one colleague that I saw once in a while, and an old high school friend that I thought, oh, I think she was vegan, I'm not sure. So it was just kind of here and there that I'd heard about it. So that was really, I felt quite isolated in the beginning, and it was really, that was a real challenge to seek out those connections. And I'm so glad I did, though. I really made conscious efforts to connect with other people. I actually contacted my old high school friend and asked for her help. And that was a wonderful first step, just to contact somebody that I hadn't spoken to in a while, but I had a wonderful connection with. And I'm really grateful to her because she provided me with some of my first recipes to try some new things. And that was really, really supportive. And then from there, I expanded. I reached out to different organizations here in the Netherlands. I started reading books, just really started to educate myself and connect a bit more. And that was really, really important to do. Absolutely. So yes, I had support, but I was also very isolated, and it was really up to me to take that initiative. And I was surprised how much support there was actually once I started looking for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's true. I mean, that's what you said was very important. It was up to you to take the initiative, right? Yeah. If you're watching, please let us know where you're watching from. And if you have any questions for Amy, please put them in the chat. So now, I guess you're working with Clare now, Clare Mann.
Yeah.
And Clare talks about, she coined the term dystopia. So tell us about dystopia and how that was applicable to your life.
Oh, wow. What a question. Yeah. For those of you, I guess kind of in a nutshell, how Clare summarizes it is dystopia is the anguish of being vegan in a non-vegan world. And I think Clare has done a brilliant job of describing this in her books, in the work she's done with, from her as a psychologist through her practice, seeing so many people come through her practice, she started to notice patterns. And people were actually, from what I understand from her, were actually misdiagnosed and sent through to her. And then she would receive them and think, this is not an eating disorder, or I think, no, they're responding. Actually, these are people who are responding to a world that is actually quite violent, and where a lot of oppression is present, and they are noticing that. It's actually quite a normal response to violence and oppression. So in that sense, it's good news that you have this response. On the other hand, it's quite a challenge to go through it, and I definitely recognize what she writes about. It's really a grieving process. From my own experience, I can speak to that. I mean, in the beginning, I felt very isolated. I also felt there were definitely moments where because you notice more things, at least for me, I notice more when I go out into the world, and then things I didn't notice before, there's more input. So it's also, your nervous system is triggered a lot more. So for example, I might go just, into town to buy groceries, for example, and then I might see along the way 10 things that remind me of that violence. That's so widespread. It could be anything from, something that someone's wearing to you see something in a shop window, in the grocery store itself, or somebody might make a comment that, refers to something about meat or whatever it might be. And it's,
all right.
you can relate, right? Yeah.
Here we go. I hear you again. There you are.
Oh, yeah. So it's really, so it's quite a shift to, and then when you go to explain, what it is that you're experiencing and what you know to other people who might not yet realize that or experience it in that way, that's the kind of second shock that you can run into is, okay, you have the first shock of realizing that all this violence and oppression is happening on a scale that we can't even really fathom, to be quite frank. And then you go to talk about it or share your findings, and you're met with resistance. Which is, and that's what I love about Clare Mann's work too, is that it's very understandable. We've all kind of been conditioned to think this is normal, or to not really know what's happening with animals. And we've grown up eating certain things, with certain traditions, celebrating in certain ways, connecting through this. So it makes complete sense that many of us are not prepared to hear that. But that, as somebody who, when you first have that initial shock of realizing what's going on, and then you go to try to share it, that's a second pain. And sometimes, at least for me, sometimes that pain even feels sometimes worse because, you want to do something about it, but then you feel really stuck and isolated. So it's moving through that, dystopia is so important. So acknowledging what you're feeling, you're not crazy. it's not just you. It's all very, I really want to normalize those feelings. Some people also feel intense anger. That's also really important to, not to feed, but to really look at and acknowledge, to see what are the needs underneath that. So that's been really key, and I sought out Clare to help myself move through this process, and I'm so grateful. And I'm noticing now the people I'm working with that many of them also are touched by this. So I'm definitely aware of this process and the impact it can have. And actually, in a way, it's kind of a gift, I think, because when you are able to move through a process like that, you're able to process those emotions and to find new ways of being. It really invites you into a new version of yourself, where you're not just surviving, but you're moving into a possibility to create. And I think that's the really exciting part. And in a way, as tough as it is, when we become aware of the, what's happening with animals, it's really overwhelming, but it's an incredible gift because we see something that is asking to be changed. And then once we see it, we can do something about it. But the first key is we really have to take care of ourselves first. And that's what my work's all about, is we really have to lay that foundation. I call it turning veganism inward. It's turning that loving kindness in on yourself. That's really, really essential in order to be, of help and support and service in the world. So that's where I'm at. That's what I noticed. There's a great need there.
Yeah. I love that. We have to take care of ourselves first. And I know that you had a lot of struggles in transformation, and I love the way that you use the word matrix. Once we see something, it's like, wait a minute, now I can never go back. I mean, the journey might be here and I still see it and I might try to turn back, but I mean, you can't unsee what you've seen. No. Yeah. So what is so hard about change? What would you say about, your own journey when you were struggling? I mean, I went through my own struggle where I hated myself, right? And it took me to the pit of self-hatred before I was even able to see I hate myself, right? And to move into change. So, and then I did. So, what about for you, Amy?
Oh, what a great question. Yeah, change can be really hard. Sometimes it goes easier than we think. I think what makes change hard is, I think one of the things that I'm noticing in the people that I've been serving is when we make it personal, right? We make it's our fault that something's happening. that's, I think, different than taking responsibility, to look at, okay, where is my realm of influence and where is my power? I think also what makes change, for example, one of the things that common mistakes I see people make is they lean a lot on their motivation to try to change something. It could be, let's say you want to improve your nutrition, for example, which is actually an underlooked area, I must say, for vegans sometimes. Yeah. You're eating plant-based, but not necessarily whole foods and balanced. That's another point. But there's some area to gain there. But sometimes I notice a lot of the people that I work with, they tend to be very, if something doesn't work out, it's who I am, right? There's something wrong with me. There's a kind of shame. Whereas actually there's always a reason that something does or doesn't work out, right? There's a very good reason for something. And the shift that I invite people into continuously when they work with me is to really kind of put on that researcher's cap of, okay, we're going to look at whatever happens, we can learn from it. So if something doesn't work out, great, so it's looking at, okay, what, if we examine it really from more of looking at it like a researcher, what can we discover? And that's when it becomes really interesting. And sometimes the best thing that can happen is really that something fails, because it can give you incredible information about what could work better. So it's really about reframing what failure is and understanding where, one client of mine recently described it as, what's the thread you can pull to start to untangle this thing? And instead of just, pulling at something. So it's, I think we also, sometimes our expectations of ourselves can be wildly unrealistic. So on the one hand, I look to challenge people. I notice that a lot of people, when they work with me, they might not even see their own possibilities. That's part of my job as a coach, to also see that thing that they don't even see themselves yet. So there's something within them that they don't even see yet. At the same time, we tend to overestimate ourselves, or, we might set too big of steps. There's an image that I really like. I saw once of somebody trying to climb a ladder with giant space in between the different rungs of the ladder. That's really hard to do. Whereas if you have smaller steps, that tends to work a lot better. And there's a lot of research within behavior change that shows that works really well when we set embarrassingly small steps for ourselves. That it tends to work a lot better. So I think it's more about how we look at change, to what extent we make it personal. Is it about who we are, or is it simply something we can examine and we can play with? And that's really a shift that we need to make. Going from this fixed mindset of, okay, it's either this or that, I fail or I win at something, or it's more of a growth process. It's more about becoming and a creation. It's really multi-layered in that sense.
Yeah. And you're right, because the path is not it's not linear. Change is not linear, and we want it to be very linear. Like, if I do this, then I'm going to get this, and there's not going to be all this in between. And that's where resilience is so important, and allowing for that. Now, I know that we talk about the imperfect mindset in the classes that we took, but there's a lot of people that have that rigid mindset, and then it really it deters from being resilient, because if you're judging yourself so much, I mean, if you're spending so much time there, you only have a certain amount of time and energy, right? And if you take that energy judging and judging and judging instead of being resilient and stepping back up, I mean, do you see that in your clients? And how do you encourage someone that just is beating themselves up all the time?
Yeah. Well, first of all, super normal. Many people do that. We all judge. I mean, our brains are judgment making machines. So it's something that we do. At the same time, there's something I learned in a recent. I was taking a nonviolent communication training, and the trainer said something I thought was really beautiful. She said, "A judgment is a tragic expression of an unmet need, right? Or it's an expression of a need. So it's the judgment itself may be misplaced or untrue, but underneath that, there's something that's asking to be fulfilled. So I think it's really to approach those judgments, whatever they might be, about ourselves, about others, about the world, with curiosity, because it's telling us something. even if the judgment itself may be completely inaccurate, or whatever it might be, but it's underneath that. There's a reason. It's again a reason it's there. So so it's to really examine that, to look at ourselves with curiosity and compassion, and to say, okay, well, what is that unmet need that is resulting in this expression of a judgment? And then we can also choose, to believe. We can start to really choose, just because the fact we have thoughts about something doesn't mean that it's true. So we can notice that. We can notice our judgments as they pop up, and then we can use them as a way to go deeper, to really look with curiosity underneath that. So I think that's really the key, is not to ignore them or add more judgment about having a judgment. You can get a whole tower of judgments. There I am judging again, right? That happens as well. We judge the judgment. But to really just stop and say, okay, this is there. This judgment is there. And to really just have compassion for the mechanism. We don't have to follow it. So I think that's really key, to look at it that way. And it's normal that we have judgments, but then we can choose to act on them or not.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, because it sounds like it's a lighter energy that I feel. It's not the harsh energy that we can do. And I was so good at just like a oppressor, right? On my own soul. So yes, when we lighten up and just simply say, okay, well, there it is.
There it is.
There it is again. I hear the voice that
there it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's only when we really believe them, and that we we will start to identify with those kinds of thoughts, that's when it becomes an issue, because then we are powerless in that sense. We give our power away to a belief that may or may not be serving us. So I think that's really important to step back, and really a lot of the coaches that I know, and Clare Mann, we all talk about, really looking at our assumptions. What are our assumptions, right? About I have plenty of them myself. I catch myself almost pretty much every day with an assumption about something, right? And like, oh, do I actually know that? Or am I approaching, for example, I used to, when I would meet new people after becoming vegan, I had this assumption that they were going to not want to hear what I had to say, or not like the fact that I'm vegan, or that I wouldn't be welcome, or that I would have to defend myself. I entered a space with a new person assuming this. So I was setting myself up. So I walked in with this very tight energy, this very, just assuming that that's what was going to happen. And there's the need underneath that. One of the needs is a need to feel safe. I really felt unsafe. So I was scared. There was really fear underneath that. So when I was able to unpack that and really go down, like, wow, this fear is there. So how can I respond? How can I acknowledge that fear and respond to it in a way that, fulfills my needs, that creates that inner safety, that is so key, that I can go into situations not knowing what it's going to be, and have that level of safety from myself inside. That changed everything. It really did. And I was surprised how many times I was wrong about the enter space. And you think someone's not going to be open to you or welcoming, but they actually, it surprisingly are. And that's a beautiful opportunity, because if I had gone in there with the assumption that I'm not welcome or I'm not safe, then I wouldn't have been able to have the conversations that I had. And that's part of the work of being an advocate for veganism. So it's really important that we check those assumptions inside, and understand how we can fulfill those needs that are underneath those. Because there's a part of ourselves, and you know about this too, Marquita, in women-centered coaching, it's about moving from this survival part of ourselves, this younger part that's just trying to survive in the world as it is, and moving to the adult part of ourselves that is able to create that inner safety, is able to connect with others, right? That's the part that can create change. So that's an exciting, that's what I work on with my clients. that's good stuff.
Yeah, connecting those two parts, having that old, the wise or older part console that part inside of us that's scared. Like, I'm scared that person's not going to like me. I'm scared they're going to make fun of me for being vegan, right? And that's normal. It's a very normal fear. All of these fears are normal. We all have them. So, yeah. And Well, what causes a separateness? Now, I can think of a couple of things. I mean, I think when we say I don't have anything in common with, I laugh because I think, I mean, I don't laugh in anyway. Okay, so let me just say it. I don't have anything in common with a hunter. Now, I laugh because I think, well, I wish that was true in a way, but it can't be true. If I want to, if I want to make a connection, it can't be true, right? And I do know hunters, right? I know hunters, and yes, I'm sure I have things in common with them. Now, why do these kind of that would be an assumption, or what would you speak? How can you speak on this?
That's a great, yeah, we could use that example. And I mean, my educated guess, I would want to get curious about someone, if somebody says, I don't have anything in common with a hunter, as a coach, I would want to investigate that. I would start to ask questions, to find out what my assumption or my educated guess is that there's likely a fear underneath there. So, and I'm curious, what is that? So if it's your desire, somebody's desire to really improve connections with others, which is an important part of our wellness, our relationships are a huge part of our well-being. And for vegans, I think a lot of that part of our well-being gets really challenged. We might be doing okay on some of the other areas of our well-being, but our relationships, that can get really, really challenging because we are going against the status quo. And so it might be, just the fact of being vegan can be triggering for others. So it's, yeah, I would be very curious about what is indeed the need underneath that. Because of course you have something in common with a hunter, and of course a person is more than his or her hobby, right? So if it's a hobby, so it's, somebody I went to a high school dance with when I think back years ago was a hunter. It's a lovely human being. I mean, so I think it's about understanding maybe what, if you would enter a conversation with this person who hunts, to understand, what it is about that to get curious about that person. But in order to be in that place of curiosity and openness, we have to have that level of safety ourselves. So if that level of safety is not quite yet there, then we need to really look at that first to see how can we foster that inner safety so that we are able to then really go and have those conversations with other people. And of course, there you have things in common with another human being. And I would just be really curious, what is it about, that particular, if you're curious about it, what is it about that particular activity that speaks to them? And there could be all kinds of things behind that. It could even be surprising what you learn. For example, let's say, a hunter might respond that they don't want to eat factory farmed meat. They'd rather go and hunt a wild animal. If they're thinking about the welfare of an animal, that could be, you don't know. So it's, you just don't know until you really get to know somebody. And it's surprising how much we have in common, really, when you get to investigate. Yeah.
So what do you think for activists? I mean, what is something that's really stopping activism?
Ooh.
I mean, effective activism. Let's say effective activism.
Really, I think it's not just one thing. I think that, one thing that might be that I'm noticing is that if that foundation is not there, if that foundation of health and wellness is not there, then it really is difficult to do activism in whatever shape or form that might be for you. Because it has many forms. It's very hard to do that for the long term. So it's, I have my personal experience with burnout. It was 2022, I believe. Yeah, it was when I didn't see it coming. And so much had shifted for me. I was a new mom. I had recently become vegan, so dealing with dystopia. I had a new job. I'd lost my old job. We were also dealing with the pandemic, which had a lot of uncertainties around it. And social life had become very strange with distancing and all kinds of things. So it was, and all of this kind of, so much changed, and all of my old ways of being, they served me up to a certain point. But when it came to my burnout, I didn't see it coming. And then at the end, I noticed, right before I crashed, I noticed that my emotions became very amplified. I couldn't think straight anymore. It felt kind of like a syrup in my head. And I just realized I wasn't able to function in the way I was used to. And when I finally called in sick at work, stopped, I could finally feel how exhausted I was. So I was stuck in these old ways of being that, again, had served me to a certain point. This younger part of me, this part that's really good at surviving in certain ways. But in the new circumstances, that wasn't sufficient. And I really needed to take a good look inside. And it took me about 3 years to really recover from that burnout. Because sometimes we talk about burnout as like, oh, I'm feeling a bit tired, like that. But when you're talking about like a clinical burnout, the way I experience it is about 1 to 3 years to recover. So once you reach that point. So, prevention is key. So we really want to, if we're talking about that. So I've from what I've gathered so far and the people I've worked with and those I've spoken to in the field, within activism, that there is a very high rate of burnout. So there is something going on there that is resulting in us not noticing our needs, on overextending ourselves, and that can be really different per person. But in general, I would say that there's an old mechanism that needs examining, that needs to be looked at, whatever that is for the individual. And it can be tied to all kinds of different things, but it's really, we need to do that inner work in order to be effective advocates on the outside. That's actually one of the things I love about being vegan, is actually really an invitation to go deeper within, not just tell others about it. So that's the first foundation that needs to be put down, is the inner work. And then, and then you can be a powerful advocate. Yeah.
Right. And so how does the inner work, how has that inner work allowed you to be more peaceful as an activist, to sleep at night?
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, it's a process over time, and it's ongoing. And I'm sure 10 years from now I'll have different insights than I do now. So who knows? But I think for me, I really had to, in doing the inner work, I needed to start to notice what I was doing unconsciously. So, and I needed some help for that. It's really hard to do that by yourself. You can definitely journal and reflect, and there's that aspect of it. But what really shifted it for me and gave me some real insight was working with a coach. Actually, I had a wonderful coach at the time that I was recovering from burnout. And she was really great at helping me to examine those unconscious mechanisms that were, that my behavior was resulting from. And there were some really key insights that I had from her. I thought, oh my gosh, there's that pattern again. That's the thing that keeps happening over and over again, right? And finally, I saw certain things. And then that's great. So when you have an insight like that, you have a professional, like a coach, for example, who helps you to see that. And then the real work begins, actually, because now that you see it, what do you do with it, right? And so then it's like this practice of, okay, so now I see this mechanism happening. What do I do instead? Who am I instead? And what do I do? So for me, that was, for example, I noticed that one of the things that I was doing was I was not recognizing some of my own needs and expressing them. So just that, my own basic needs, recognizing them, recognizing the signals. So for example, with burnout, even not feeling, like I would feel like I don't really feel like doing something. Not motivated to do it, and still pushing myself to do it, right? That not feeling like I want to do it, that's already a sign that there's some kind of signal, some kind of need that needs to be met. So, and of course we all have things that, we'd rather, some things that are important to do, that maybe you don't feel like doing. Okay, your kid wakes up in the middle of the night and you don't really feel like getting up, but okay, there's another person there who has needs. But at the same time, we have a lot more choice than we realize. So noticing those signals, really getting more in touch with our bodies. Our bodies are speaking to us all the time. I was really living in my head. I really was. So starting to notice those different signals, and then like, wow, what is that? What is that need? Or I'm feeling tired. I don't even have to know why I'm feeling tired, but I'm tired. What do I need? I need rest. And what kind of rest is that? Is it like a physical rest? Is it mental rest? And really then just starting to notice that and then take imperfect action to fulfill that. So I remember the very first time, for example, that we had my mother-in-law visiting for a cup of coffee. And she was downstairs and my husband was there and my daughter was there. And I was just exhausted. And I thought normally I would just sit there and just, be socially nice and just kind of, but then I asked my mother-in-law, my husband, like, would you mind if I just went upstairs? I would like to go upstairs and just lay down for a bit because I'm very tired. No problem. And I remember feeling so scared to ask that. I was so it seems so small, but those are those tiny imperfect actions of like practicing little bits at a time of, how can I change my behavior here? And that's where it starts. And then you can really grow from there. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And what you said was so important about listening to our bodies and how you talked about living up here. And,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we can. A lot of times we think we can just think ourselves out of these issues, but we're not connected to our body that's
Yeah.
to our intuition that's giving us, we're ignoring that this doesn't feel right, but I can just think my way out of this and push it away. And
Yeah.
so I'll make it happen, right? Even though my body's screaming, no, we don't listen. And then we end up getting sick and burning out.
Yeah. Yeah. And the signals are all there. And the funny thing about burnout too is that when you come into that when you're nearing a burnout, you actually come into a kind of survival mode. You're kind of, let's say, on a lot. So your ability to notice those sensations or feelings or whatever those signals actually decreases, because when you're in a survival mode, you want, if you're running from the lion, you would just want to run. You don't want to think, what am I feeling? No, like I need to run, right? Like the lion is there. But if there's like a figurative lion around a lot, let's say, then it actually becomes harder to notice those signals. So that's why rest is so important. And rest there are many different types of rest. It's not just sleep. That sleep's really important, but also mental rest. So for example, if you're washing the dishes, and just doing something with your hands, that's a kind of rest. It can be mental rest, or and depending on your needs. If you're a highly sensitive person, or if you're introverted, you have different needs for rest than somebody who doesn't have those character traits. So I think it's really important to notice, not necessarily what everybody else does, but what you specifically need. And in this chapter of your life, because I noticed my needs changed a lot when I became a parent. A lot shifted, and my needs for rest shifted dramatically. So, and the old way I didn't have that issue before, it seemed, but then my life changed so much having a child. And then your needs really shift. So it's not a static thing. Yeah.
Well, no, that all makes sense. And I think about, like, today I was going to take a little nap and I couldn't go to sleep. And I thought, I'm just going to lay here. I'm not going to force myself like, okay, now we've got to sleep. Right. But no, nevertheless, I allowed myself to lay down. And then I thought, you know what, I'm going to go outside. And that's still restful for me, being
Mm-hmm.
outside. It's another way of resting from the computer screen. I was on the screen this morning doing all sorts of tech stuff, which just makes my head, I'm not a tech person. My head's like going to explode. And, but yeah, and gardening, things like that. A friend of mine he was telling me about a garden. I said, well, I'll help you if you ever need help. And he said, but you work so much. And I said, but the garden isn't work. That's earth, touching, connecting, right? And going and helping a friend or whoever with a garden or being out there is life force. That's the rejuvenation that we need, and that we have to schedule into our days, because if we don't schedule these things, they don't get done. We can just be on that autopilot, just like, okay, I'm on the computer, just like till my mind explodes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's indeed like, what is like for you, if working in the garden is a kind of rest for you, you might be physically, might be using your muscles, but it could be mentally and spiritually even very, very restful. So it's indeed, what are those different things? And what I've noticed among some activists too is that, we're very driven to make a difference. And I've noticed sometimes there's even a feeling of like a guilt or a shame, even if you take rest, because the animals need me, or like, no, those things. But actually, to really do this sustainably, well, first of all, we are animals too. So we have basic needs just like other animals, including rest and recovery. So and if we're not fulfilling those needs on a structural basis, it's gonna end up, our bodies at some point will say no. Mine did for sure. And it's, your bodies don't lie, and our bodies don't lie. Our bodies are communicating with us and are very clear. So it's about really honoring the form that we're in, right? We have this beautiful, we're part of creation. We've been given these bodies, with different abilities and shapes and forms, but, really honoring the form that we're in, with its limitations and its abilities. So it's, part of being human.
Yeah. And the better you know yourself, you'll know what brings you rest, and how you can get there, and and you'll also be able to recognize, you won't wait till you're collapsing, right? You'll signs ahead of time. The more you just spend time on it, like you said, like, what am I feeling now? What do I need in this moment? When I'm feeling like my head's gonna explode. When I get that way, I force myself to go outside. Okay, that's it. We're taking a break. I want to get this finished, but no, I'm going to go outside because, my body is screaming break.
Yeah. And that's indeed like an imperfect practice of doing that. And I'm also not perfect at it either. I still, I make mistakes all the time in this realm, but then like, oh, okay, what happened there? What can I learn from that, right? So I'm moving into that growth mindset again of like, okay, that didn't go as I hoped, or I overextended myself, or I stayed up too late, or whatever it is. But there's a reason all those things are happening. And to also just, sometimes you don't have to necessarily examine every single thing, but also we can also say like, oh, that didn't go well yesterday. I'll try again today. And that's okay too. So it's, we're allowed to be imperfect. We are imperfect. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for allowing us. Thank you for saying it, right? Because there is no perfect. So that's the trap we get into. Especially as vegans, the trap of like, I didn't convert anyone today, or no one listened to me, so therefore I'm bad, or therefore, I'm a failure, or this or that. And then we just heap all that. And to have these expectations, on ourselves, the pressure of going out there and thinking, I've got to convert someone every minute of the day. It's, gosh, who could live like that?
Yeah. It's exhausting, and it probably doesn't work very well. So, I think this kind of brings it back to what we were talking about before, like really that foundation, ourselves, like taking care of ourselves. And it's really not a luxury. It's really not about, going to the spa and painting our fingernails, but it's about really fulfilling our basic needs. And there are many needs we have. And to really take those seriously. And then I think when we're able to do that well with ourselves, we're able to brilliantly and imperfectly take care of our own foundation, we are in a much better place to connect with others, to do the change-making work that we're here to do, in whatever capacity it is for you in this chapter of your life. Especially as a parent now, sometimes I notice the urge to want to do more, and then I realize, well, I've got a 5-year-old who also needs my attention, right? So it's also noticing like, hey, it's, at this point in my life, what am I, what is the situation I'm in, and what are the needs there? So, and instead of, I don't know, one of my inner stories that's come up recently is that I'm, not enough. It's never enough, right? I think a lot of people have that one. It sounds like you recognize that one too, Mary. Yeah. So if it's never enough, it's like never finished. It's always more and more. And it's, again, coming from this deep part of me that's just trying to survive. It's just trying to be accepted and be safe. But that not enough story, when I really look at it, it's not true, right? And there are other, so I'm in a conscious shift at the moment for myself. It's not that story goes away, but I'm more and more able now to notice when it comes up and how it drives certain behaviors that I've displayed in the past. It's like, oh, there it is again. There I am taking criticism personally again. Oh, because I feel I'm not enough. It's personal. Yeah, so to really notice that, and then to lead ourselves back into that part of ourselves that is the adult, that's the creator, the part that can connect, the part that can create that inner safety. That part is there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And working with a coach is so amazing. Right now I'm working with someone and I'm working on my animus, which is my masculine side. And so I'm calling on the masculine parts of myself to step up for me and to say, yes, you are enough, right? And to say, I have this image of my masculine shining this light against the darkness, someone or whoever's trying to say this, things that are not true. And I just imagine him behind me with this light blocking all of that. So it's really fulfilling when you work with someone and then they can see and they can help you navigate, and you learn different ways to handle this I'm not enough or whatever's coming at you, the gaslighting of the world, and how you can the creative ways to do it. So it's exciting.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So let's talk. I want to, first of all, if you're watching, please subscribe and also go to www. And if you want to leave a one-time donation or a recurring donation to www.all-creatures.org, we'd appreciate it. So let's talk about who you coach and where people can get a hold of you. Tell us about the different kinds of coaching you do.
Yeah. So who I coach, it's funny because I'm going to go back to this not enough story.
Okay.
From this story, I used to think, oh, I have to define this really clear niche. It needs to be this or that. And I kept noticing I have a couple of these different things and do they have to be vegan, or they could be, other change makers? And then I realized in a recent deep dive that I did with myself on this theme, I realized, wow, actually maybe, the people that I'm serving, that is it's almost like it's hard to describe in my words that I have right now what that exactly is. I'm using the word change makers at the moment because that feels like the most fit, and many of them do identify as vegan. Not all of my clients are vegan. So, for example, one of my clients is she refers to herself as a plant-based entrepreneur, and she's growing her business, helping people transition to a whole foods plant-based lifestyle. So she's not talking about animals at all in her business. But she's doing wonderful works, right? So fantastic. That's great. She's serving a lot of people. So who I really I'm serving at the moment are change makers, and change makers that could be something, like this entrepreneur who's growing this big business. At the same time, it could also be someone, one of my clients is also a teacher, very different role. I've supported people, from animal rights organizations. It just depends on the role, how you see yourself as a change maker. And I think what it is when you decide to work with me, you decide also to take a step in that direction. So it's not just about, feeling better to feel better. We all like to feel better, to align our health and our wellness, but it's to feel better so that we can be of greater service. Right? So that we can be those change makers that we were born to be, in whatever fashion or shape or form that is. That could be in your job, but it could also just be in your community or in your family. So it's really about embracing that part of yourself and recognizing the need of, okay, I really need to take care of myself first to get that foundation, to turn veganism inwards, and then I wonder what I could do. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
I mean, it's essential. And I hear many times, I don't have time to, I don't have time to worry about myself, right? We don't have time to worry about any of this. The animals are suffering. We need change now. That means we have to go in, like with guns and, the cannons ready. And, and then we go in, and if we're coming from a place of lack, of not enough, and this is what we talk about in the Institute for the Women-Centered Training, about like we're creating from a place of weakness instead of creating from a place of power. And that's why it's so important to work on yourself so that you are powerful. And then when people work with you, you show them, You know, you mean you bring awareness to where are you starting from?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. You named it there really well, Marquita. Like when you try to create change from this place of lack, this place of black and white thinking, it's either I succeed or I fail, or places of judgment, all of these things that have come up in our conversation. These are all part of we're just trying to survive. Those are all expressions of us just trying to survive. And those are understandable that those are there. And at the same time, we cannot create this world that we yearn for, this vegan world that we yearn for, and that we know that is within us. We cannot create that in the old paradigms. So in this old conditioning. So that's really, something is being asked to be created that doesn't exist yet, right? And that's, how cool is that, right? That is really fun. But we must examine that, that invisible architecture that we've been living up until now. And some of that is, our own inner beliefs, but it's also the architecture around us, the unspoken cultural agreements around us. How do we respond to those? We're in relationship all the time. So how do we examine that? How do we make that more conscious? And then from that awareness, make conscious choices and decisions from there to create something new. That's really the shift we need to make. And it's, I think you were asking us about what's holding activism back. I think it's because we're stuck in these old paradigms, right, of not enoughness or whatever. And people sometimes can be acting out of also deep-seated traumas, and they're expressing this through their activism. So that really needs examining, because it has a direct impact on how we can help animals, right, on how effective we actually are. And so it might seem like, slowing down first might seem inefficient, but efficiency and effectiveness are not the same thing. So it's really important to slow down first, do that inner work, and then bring it into practice brilliantly and imperfectly.
Well, how do you start off your sessions? How do you get people grounded in that place of stillness and feeling powerful how do you move them away from lack, in your sessions?
Yeah. Well, it's really personal. So especially if I'm working one-on-one with somebody, that goes at its own pace, right? So not everybody's in the same pace in the same place. But basically, kind of generally speaking, if you look at a general coaching path, however long it may last, it really starts out with getting really clear, connecting with that creator part of ourself. And from there, from this part of us that is free from all this architecture, let's say, these cultural agreements, these limiting beliefs, that part of us that's, that we can get in touch with that powerful part of ourselves. From there, we want to start to touch a vision of what it is we want to create, right? So kind of get a sense of that as much as we can at that point. And as a coach, it's also my job to amplify that and to see the things that are not even being said yet. Because that's also what happens to people come to a coach and say, I want to do this and that, I want to achieve this. But that wish to achieve something might be coming from the old architecture that's just looking to survive, right? So it's also really being, I'm aware that there's this part of the person sitting in front of me that they might not even be aware of yet. And that's really exciting. So really getting in touch with that part as much as possible in the beginning, touching, creating that vision as much as we can. We set a very clear coaching outcome that's super personal for what that is, depends on the person. So what is one concrete thing that we're working towards, in our relationship together that's going to be an expression of this vision? How do you know that you've actually gotten there? What's one way you can know that? So that, and then it really starts with then slowing down and going deeper. So really starting to examine those inner stories, right? So what are the things that have kept happening over and over again? What keeps repeating itself, right? And then there are different ways and techniques to go into that. And then to see what comes up, to bring those unconscious structures and beliefs into light. And from there, really start to create that awareness around there. And then from there, you can start to consciously shift to a new story, right? To a new way of, so for example, if the primary story is I'm not enough, right? Like mine, what's one of my primary ones that I've had. A new story could be, and there are ways we can reach this, my very existence is worthy of love. Or, there are all kinds of ways that it could be. And then once that's there, that becomes kind of our North Star, right? Like kind of our what we can go back into. And then the work begins of bringing that into practice, right? Over and over again, imperfectly. But to really start to make shifts in our lives, to shift our environments in a way that's going to support us to become this new version of ourselves. And yeah, that's just really exciting to see. And it's, and that the more you practice and become, like, that shift your life in ways that make concrete differences, you start to become that person that you were meant to be, right? So, and you're able to notice when the old things pop up. So, and lead yourself continuously back into the new leader that you are, right? And that you're becoming. And again, it's not like you suddenly switch on a light and the old stuff is gone, but it's it's constantly like really, it's like going to the gym. It just takes time. You got to build up those muscles, right? It's practice. And it takes hard work, and recognizing then, what skills need to be developed, what capacities need to come. Then once you're into that more adult part of yourself, you can start to be honest with yourself about why certain things maybe haven't manifested yet, because maybe there's a missing skill set. Maybe there's something you need to develop, or certain things you haven't done, so that you can get very, very honest about those things. And that's where accountability comes in with the coach as well, to really help you with compassion, look at those gaps. Because those gaps are, from a place of shame and the old paradigm, you can't really look at those gaps because it's too personal.
Yes, the tangible steps, and then having a coach there to support you and say, hey, it's okay. You know what? It's okay that there was this little crash, this little failure, whatever you want to call it, right? That's part of it, right? Instead of, because if you try to, so many times we try to take that on ourselves. And if we don't have someone saying it's okay, then we just sit there and think, oh my gosh, and we get caught on that speed bump. But a coach will help you go over the speed bump, look at it, go, let's keep going, right? And not letting it be the end of the road. You'll have someone there that's done it before, and with the tangible steps along the way, and knowing that, that this is not, it's not going to be this smooth linear road, and we're here for the long haul. We're here for the long term, not the short term win. But now we're setting ourselves up with this tangible, steps in our purpose. So that's amazing, and I highly recommend you. Everybody should definitely check out Amy and check out your website. So where can I see that we're coming to the end? I want you to have your final last words, maybe last thoughts, and tell us again where people can reach you.
Yeah, sure. It depends on where you like to be. So I'm on LinkedIn for sure. So if you use LinkedIn, definitely connect with me. Send me a message that you listened today, and I'm happy to continue the conversation there with you if you like. Also on my websites, I'm definitely reachable there for sure. So there's an option. I do invite people. I organize free workshops every once in a while, to kind of get more of an in-depth sense of what this is, the type of work that I'm doing, and how that can really serve you, to really go a bit deeper on this. And so up in the corner of my website, you'll see an option there about joining a free workshop. And if there's, right now the next date is not yet known, so you can sign up for the wait list for that date. And as soon as that is known, then you'll be the first to be invited. So that's great. And so that's where you can definitely find me. So that's the easy. My website and LinkedIn are the two easiest places to find me.
Great. And Ellen saying thank you both. Yes, thank you, Ellen, for everything you're doing with the kids and your work. She's amazing, cooking and sewing and being a wonderful leader for our children and for adults, for all the human animals. So this has been, an inspiring conversation, because I know that you're really working from your heart, and that you have the tangible steps to help people, and that you've been through the healing journey, the burnout, the fighting your way back up, and the resilience on that path of allowing now and catching yourself with gracefulness and with non-judgment. And that is so essential that support that you're able to give people. So again, if you're watching and you're struggling, or even if you're just wanting to grow, please reach out to Amy, because she's done the work and I highly recommend her. So
well, thank you. And I want to thank you, Marquita, as well for your role today. And I just really want to acknowledge, I mean, I don't know if all of you know, but Marquita is such a powerhouse. She really is. She does so much work. What a powerful advocate she is. So thank you, Marquita, for your time today.
thank you. This has been wonderful. And well, everyone, reach out to us. And if you're watching on the replay, please comment away. And if you want us to connect, yeah, put it in the comments, reach out to us, because we'd love to hear from you. So thanks, everyone, Ellen and Amy. And Ellen is saying, yeah, I don't know who she's saying, but we're all powerhouses. Let's just say that. She is all of us. So anyway, y'all, thanks so much. And we'll see you next week. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.